I'm Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy, Mysonne the General.
We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us.
What's going on, my son Lennon?
You know I'm blessed, black, and highly favored.
Blessed, black, and highly favored. That is very, very, very true. You are.
Yes, just finishing off a beautiful Father's Day with my young kings. And
Father's Day to
you. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. I didn't even put up a Father's Day post on Father's Day. I was so busy, being a father and doing so many different things. As you know, I've been shooting a film. Shout out to my brother Wally Burgos, who is directing this film called Brainfest. That's probably gonna be a classic movie. I've been doing that for like the last couple of weeks, and we filmed for like this last week probably all day long, and that had me just running around crazy. And then actually on Father's Day early, I went to a prison to film a short film that was powerful with a guy from Newark. Shout out to him. His name is Brad. They call him Brad. He's working with a film school, and he drew up a dope script, and he wanted me to star in the script, and it was a real powerful script. So I just did that, and then Father's Day with my kids, we went to the snow. If you haven't been to Big Snow in American Dream, it's an amazing place.
In New York, because remember our listeners.
It's in New Jersey.
It's
in New Jersey. I think it's in Secaucus. It's right next to the MetLife Stadium. It's the American Dream. It's the American Dream Mall. They have all types of things. So they wanted to do what do you call it? Snowboarding.
Oh, in the summertime.
Yes. And it feels like you in Aspen in there. It's so cold in there. I go in there for a few seconds, and then I just let them run rampant in there. So
your old bones.
Yeah, my bones don't work. They hit their little tailbones, and they was on fire yesterday. This is the first time I heard them like, yo, my tailbone is hurting. They both was sore. They give you like a 2-hour period that you can do everything you want to do. So it was good. It was a good event. Now today, I'm about to head off. That's why I can't be on this full episode. I'm sorry. I know my listeners gonna miss me, but I got to go do our program in Westside High School in Newark. Shout out to Principal Akbar Cook and the music teacher there, John Thomason, for allowing me to come there with this music program that I created called From Drill Music to Hill Music. And today is going to be our final presentation, which is a talent show in which we're going to showcase 2 videos that they've created and music that they've created, and just talk about what the program is. So I'm really excited to showcase what these kids have been really building on, and and just taking the concept that I planted a seed, and they just turned it into a whole forest, man. I wanted to take the same energy that they have in drill music, the same beats and everything, but just change the message on it, because we want that energy, we want the culture, because obviously it's something that attracts people. But I just said we don't got to kill and drill and spin the block and do all of that in every song. So I challenged them, and they met the challenge with flying colors, and I'm really I'm eager to let the school is going to be there, and they're going to present their finished products to the school. So I'm eager to get over there and work with these kids. We should have some special guests come by. I ain't gonna say who they are yet until they come, because people's schedules mess up. A couple of them have confirmed that they're gonna be there, but it should be a dope event.
That's great. And so for those folks who are listening, just to give the proper context for this, Until Freedom's Boycott Black Murder campaign has a program in Westside High School in Newark, New Jersey, in which my son has been working with these young people for several months as a part of our Boycott Black Murder efforts. And so, we are around the country, spread around the country, trying to, as you said, plant seeds through our organization to help our young people redirect, and there's, especially during this time when folks are talking so much about gun violence, prevention and intervention. I feel like we are, at Until Freedom, I'm proud to say that the organization is really stepping up and ensuring that we are actively engaged with our young people. And this program is a true testament to that. I give you all the kudos for being there with the students once a week for several months, from the winter to the spring, now leading into the hot heat, hot today. Summer, you've really been consistent with these young people. So it's a great thing. I mean, I'm very proud of you and what you've been able to do.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I'm proud of these young boys. And once again, shout out to Principal Cook, who
That's
believed
right.
in the program and allowed us, fully much open door to come inside and build with these young men. And shout out to the music teacher, Coach T, they call him. But he's an amazing guy, and he really believes in the students. He loves music, and he's passionate about it. So when you put that all together, can't get nothing but something that's dope. So I'm eager, and I can't wait to watch these kids just present what they created. Like, they shot the videos themselves, they created the beats themselves. We came up with concepts, and we did them all together, and there was even the people who weren't actually creating music had input into it. Everybody felt, there was about a room of about 15 to 20 of us, and everybody was involved, and they felt involved in it. So I'm just glad to see that it pretty much, the vision that I had in my head, actually came to life. So
yeah. Cool. That's awesome. Awesome. I'm excited. I will not be there early to do the setup. The rest of the team will be there, but I'm coming as soon as I finish today. That Nygil Cullins, the case that happened in Atlanta, Georgia, in Buckhead, at Fogo restaurant, this young man was shot with his hands in the air, shot 15 times. I had heard it was 10, but now I learned from being at a rally this week that he was shot 15 times by police after a few calls about him having a mental health crisis, being in crisis. His mother had him set up to go to a program, and she wanted to get the police to help her to get him to the place where he could get help. And of course, the police showed up, and rather than helping him, they shot him to death. Yes, he had a gun, but everybody in Georgia has a gun. So, it's interesting to me that now, because people are, oh, well, he had a gun. Well, that's the law in Georgia, that you can have a gun, anybody. It's not much work that's being done to stop people from walking into a local gun store and purchasing a gun. They claim they have some screening, but clearly it's not enough. No one can be 100% certain about when someone will have a manic episode, but nonetheless, there are many reasons why we need to have stricter gun laws. We need to ensure that people are not just walking around with weapons, especially when you have a police department that is not trained, nor do they care to be trained properly in our communities to deal with the over-influx of people who are carrying. So that's, what I'll be talking to Attorney Gerald Griggs, who's the president of the NAACP chapter there in Georgia, in Atlanta. He's going to come on and while, and be a guest to just go through it. This happened 2 years ago. Everybody knew it. The district attorney knew what happened. The city knew. And if they didn't know, then that means the police department withheld the information. Of course, the video that they initially put out was a video that was slowed down. This is a new tactic that they are using. Rather than just releasing all the footage of the videos, they put out little drips and pieces, and they slow it down and highly edit it so that you can't see what happened. Now, 2 years later, the full video is out, and you see this young man, in my judgment, being executed. It was an unnecessary approach. So today we'll be talking to Gerald Griggs about that.
Yeah, man, I think it was a atrocity, man. When I first saw it, I posted on my page, and everybody pretty much felt the same way. There's no justification for what happened to that young man. You could tell there was a level of fear that he had running from the police, and based on what happened to him, his fear was justified. It's just sad to see. I went to see Mr. Belafonte's, as we call him, Mr. B's, sort of a documentary.
Suzanne made this documentary
Yeah, she
about
created about him, and it was so telling. And Mr. B said so many things. And when I think about this case, what he said, first of all, it was an excellent documentary. You got to see it because you're in there, with a good part. And he was saying, and it's like you see him mentoring different stages of the movement, right? You watch him mentor the Dream Defenders. You see him mentoring the Women's March. You see him mentoring the Parkland people. And then every time, what he kept saying was, "What are you going to do to capitalize on? Because the enemy is going to try to divide it, right? And there's going to be another Mike Brown. You might not think so now." And sure enough, there was another Mike Brown. He said, "There's going to be another Eric Gardner." And he constantly told every person that he met with, that he mentored in those moments, that there would be another person. And just hearing that was like, wow. He had been through so many different levels, and just constantly seeing the same thing happen over and over. And we in a constant repeated state of just being killed. And there's really nothing changing. And it's just sometimes it's disheartening, for a lot of us who are on this front line trying to get change. But then when you actually see some level of change, or you see some level of accountability, like with George Floyd, it gives you a little hope. But then once again, this government would try to roll back everything.
Well, one of the things I want to talk about, I was hoping that you and I would have time to discuss it, but I'll take this conversation, my thought of the day, over to Attorney Griggs. I was looking at social media the other day, and Amber Rose has now become the biggest Trump supporter ever. And I just listened to some of the things, or at least I read some of the things that she says, and their strategy, the right-wing strategy, is to play three-car Molly with your mind. They move the pieces around so quick. And if you're not a certain type of person, the way that we are, you'll miss it. You'll miss it. And by the way, when I was young, I was on Fordham Road in the Bronx in New York City, and my mom told me on my way out the door, do not play that three-card game because you can't win. Don't even play the game. And I think, as you said, the government will try to roll everything back. They are trying to, the fight that we had in 2020, there is a backlash to that. And we are experiencing it right now, where people are doing all that they can to, one, discredit, and also, so first of all, discredit us and our movements. But the next thing is that they are strategic enough to put people in place to help them make new laws and to change the rules, so that we are in a vulnerable situation for many, 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 many years to come. These people want to, I believe, reinstitute the type of world that we know we cannot allow our children to have to face. And a big part of why Dr. King and others fought so hard, and why we continue to fight so hard, is because we know we have such of a responsibility to protect our children from what the onslaught that they are up against. And I don't want the kids to look back at us and say, what did we do? And why weren't we on the job? Why weren't we in the watchman's house? Why weren't we making sure that we protect them? And now they have to fight to unravel. And God knows how that will even happen, because the way in which Trump and them want to stack the courts and do all the things that they're doing, they're talking about institutional, systemic change to take us back to a time that so many of our people fought and died to get us out of.
Yeah, you're 100% right. We're in some very strange, peculiar times. I said it this morning. I was watching, like you said, I was watching Amber Rose, and then I was watching in Detroit, some rappers, young rappers with Donald Trump and telling him how he's the only one who came to the hood. And I was
That
just
wasn't a
listening.
rapper, that was a preacher.
Well, the preacher was with the rappers. The
Oh,
rappers were
rappers.
there too. The preacher actually said he was the only one that came to the hood, but the rappers were there too. And I was just like, propaganda is so crazy. And that's one of the things that Mr. B said. He said they will nullify the movement. They will discredit it. They will do everything to combat it. You have a small window to try to do something because they're going to come. And I watch how Black Lives Matter became the mantra of the world, and then it became the most hated phrase.
Mm-hmm.
I
Well,
watch how they
yeah, they did
literally
the hated phrase. That's right.
it is so much of a hate. When you say that word, it's it's a scam and this and that. It was always, and I just be looking like, where did you get that from? Who
Yeah.
made you believe that just the words Black Lives Matter is something negative? And it also brings you back to Malcolm X said, who made you hate the color of your skin? Who made you hate the size of your nose or the texture of your hair? Who made you think that? And you don't even know who made you do it, right? So when I'm having these conversations and they say Black Lives, I said, so prove it. Because they can't wait to throw Black people in jail for $200. They locking us up for $200 and $300. If you in the office and you sign over a check that's $200 that ain't supposed to go, they putting you in jail as a Black man. I know a bunch of Black men facing that. So what I'm trying to say is, if Black Lives Matter did something wrong with 100 mil, they can't wait to be able to perp walk these people. Why they ain't in jail? If it's the biggest scam in the world, like why not? Nobody ever has the answer for that. So, but it's so crazy how we allow them to trick us into believing that there's something wrong with us.
Absolutely.
That we criminals, everyone. It's the same playbook. It's so crazy that when you look from every leader, every movement we had, they did the same exact thing. If you just study history, they did the same shit. Oh, he stole, he did this, he's a criminal, he's not this, he's this, the same bullshit, man. And it's like, when we gonna wake up to it?
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you. I'll see you soon.
Yes, you will.
And
Hold it down. Tell Attorney Griggs that we're with him, and I send my love, and we fighting for justice for Nygil Cullins.
Peace.
Peace.
Our brother, Attorney Gerald Griggs, is joining us today. I've already explained to you all this case that many of you are already aware of. The last several days, or the last week at least, have been extremely traumatizing for many people. In fact, I was getting calls from folks just around the country, people in Georgia, people who had just been to the restaurant where Nygil Cullins was killed. They'd just been there days before the video was released that shows the horrific way in which his life was taken by the police. And people are so frustrated with the idea that we have to continue to deal with this climate of police abuse that has gone unaddressed by most, if not all, if you will, of our elected leadership. And I say all because while I do understand that there are many different layers and levels, federal government, local government, you have people who are fighting really hard to get things like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and other things passed. But at the end of the day, it hasn't. And so we have to hold everybody accountable for how we get to the point where there are measures put in place to protect Black lives. And I asked my friend, Attorney Gerald Griggs, to join us. He has been the attorney for the family of Nygil Cullins from 2 years ago when this incident first happened all the way until today. Now, Attorney Griggs, my son wanted to share his love with you and appreciation for you being here. He wanted to send, a firm statement to you that Until Freedom stands with you, and we are there. As I mentioned to you today, we're fighting on so many fronts. On one hand, dealing with police accountability. On the other hand, we're working with our youth. And we are running a program in Newark, New Jersey, with some young people in one of the schools that has an extremely unfortunate number of violent incidents, fights, shootings, young people actually dying outside the building, shootings have happened. And this principal is doing a hell of a job to work to turn that around. Principal Cook, he's a real guy from the community. And so he's working with Mysonne, and they have taken a group of students and stripped drill music from some of the beats. Some of it, the young people created their own. Some of it are, current beats that are out there with popular drill songs. And they have now went from drill music to heel music. And today is a concert before the entire school to showcase this project that they put together that includes videos. It includes artwork, graphic work that they've done. It's just a great project. So he was unable to be here, but he said, if you're going to have Griggs, you're going to be all right. I can leave you in his hands.
I appreciate him, and shout out to that program. We need more of that all throughout the country. So I understand, and my son's my brother, so I support whatever he's doing. He knows that he has our support down here in Atlanta. So salute to him.
Thank you so much. So first off, I did not do my thought of the day in this program today, and I want to bring you into a conversation. It's not why I invited you. I wanted to talk about Nygil Cullins. However, I am like you, pissed off with the current administration for a number of things. Aggravated, frustrated, sometimes hopeless, sometimes defensive. I mean, it's almost like I'm in a reoccurring nightmare where you just like fight in the air. You don't know which way, who to punch first. It's like the ugly heads just popping up everywhere. And it is the most frustrating time, I think, for all of us. And I know you shared the concerns around the current administration, the previous, the ones trying to get in. I mean, it's just a big landscape full of mess. We know it, we see it. And I think we would be disingenuous as leaders, especially the types of people that work with us, the people who expect us to lead, not to be honest and say, this is a damning time in American history, period. Right? So you share that?
I share that as my brother, and I think your brother, Dr. William Barber, always says we're in the third Reconstruction. So we wouldn't be leaders without telling people we are in one of those historical moments in history where if the good people don't stand up and speak truth to power, we're going to go backwards. So we have to be honest. This is the 1920s all over again, 1930s, 1940s, and we have to be honest with the people.
Absolutely. So we established that. However, I know we also share an understanding that if we do not maintain some level of control over our government and we allow Donald Trump to become president, we ain't seen nothing yet, as the old folks say, right?
Absolutely.
Ain't seen nothing yet, because this man is coming back and attempting to become president again with the vengeance. And I tell you, let's just be honest. If you and I running our organizations and we're in a position of power, and for whatever demented reasons, we'll never, if we are anything like Donald Trump, we'll never accept all the reasons why the American people voted against you. But if you believe in your mind that somehow you were done wrong and you need to return to power, if you are a narcissist who is coupled with a racist, coupled with someone who wants fascism, we've seen it. We know it's not what we think. We know what comes out of his mouth. We also watched him and the policies and the types of people that he put in place all around him when he was president, and even since then. We know that let's just be honest, if that was your personality, when you return to a place of power and get back in the position, you're going to spank on everybody and everything and try to do everything that you wanted to do, plus some more, and with an attitude. So just on that for me is problematic, because I don't want the boyfriend or the old employee returning to my life with a vengeance for me because they whatever cooked up mess is in their mind. That I don't want in my life.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like an old saying we have in Atlanta. Somebody want to get their lick back, they're gonna try to get their lick back. And so, as you're saying, I mean, we fought him. And again, I'm taking my NAACP hat off and just being Gerald Griggs, the activist and the attorney. From 2016 to 2020, me and you were fighting this man repeatedly, whether it's Women's March, whether it was DOJ. I mean, it was all kinds of things that we were fighting him, and we were successful to mobilize the vote in historic numbers, especially in Georgia. In Georgia, we held the line. And so to see what's happening now is disheartening, but we're still hopeful that we can convince individuals to use the most powerful nonviolent weapon they have, which is the vote. But either side has to earn it. And my hope is the other side will not earn it. But, as the NAACP president, I can't go full-throated, but I can tell you as Gerald Griggs, Georgia has something to say. And whether or not people turn out, we're going to send him to a prison in Georgia because he violated Georgians' rights by saying that he wanted 7,100 and whatever votes. So as long as there are laws in Georgia, we're going to hold it.
Before you go on with that, haven't they indefinitely paused the case that is being led by Fannie Willis?
It's not indefinitely paused. So there's a hearing with the Court of Appeals in October to determine whether or not Judge McAfee's ruling not disqualifying her will stand. And I truly believe, based on my reading of Georgia law, that decision will hold and then the trial will start. But also, there are co-defendants in the case whose cases continue. So the case is not indefinitely paused. It's a lot of media reporting that, and that's why you need Georgia lawyers to actually explain what's happening. It's just that portion is paused for oral argument, and then the Court of Appeals will issue a ruling.
But they're still doing some funny business, in my judgment.
Yeah, I mean, they are.
Find their way around this particular thing. So, my thought of the day today, Griggs, is I was watching social media a couple days ago. I don't know about you, but I've significantly reduced the amount of time that I spend on social media because I'm beginning to see I can already tell, especially as election time comes around, you begin to see the propaganda on all sides, and you begin to see that if you can become so frustrated that you can't even focus on the tangible, right in front of you, real work that you're doing. So for me, I've cut back on social media. But I was on Shade Room one day and I saw Amber Rose on there talking. Now, Amber Rose has now endorsed Donald Trump. She is the biggest Donald Trump supporter. And she said some things that I'm going to make sure there's the screenshot of her comments that you all get an opportunity to see it, everyone who's listening. But the bottom line is that she says, one, Trump is not a supporter of Project 2025. That he's not a supporter of it, that it's bullshit, it's all Democratic lies. Democrats want you to be poor and broke, and they just trying to force you through their own propaganda to make you vote for President Biden. Then she goes on to say that, and it is not true that President Trump at the time banned abortions, that he did not ban abortions. That's bullshit, it's a lie. Now, number one, she's right about that. He did not ban abortion. So that's true. But the trick that they're playing, that either she doesn't know or she is intentionally involved in attempting to confuse and misinform the American people, is that no, he did not ban abortions. What he did was put people, whether it be court justices and judges, across the country in place that would help to ban abortion. He himself, his own words, we will play a clip today. His own words, he said he was responsible for getting rid of Roe v. Wade, which we know has been gutted at this point. A lot of activists, advocates, and others, policymakers, did not want Donald Trump to become president because they knew it was going to be a part of his platform. He has to please his conservative right-wing section of his government. And in fact, they're his friends. They worked for him. They were in the White House. Stephen Miller, all these crazy right-wing people. These are his people. The folks from the Heritage Foundation, who for decades have been the most influential voices in terms of policy for the Republican Party. These are his friends. These are people he put in position. They are his friends. And for her to say that he does not support Project 2025, well, where has he said that out of his mouth?
At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people. You must follow your heart or, in many cases, your religion or your faith. Like Ronald Reagan, I am strongly in favor of exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother.
In fact, his policies are deeply aligned with what is in Project 2025. And again, his friends wrote it, the people who worked for him before and the people who are around him today. And the Heritage Foundation is at the center of Project 2025, which if you have not read it, don't listen to us. We're not going to break it down. You need to go search Project 2025 and read that entire platform, which is one of the most conservative platforms that this country has seen in a long time, and it will absolutely be harmful to Black and brown people. And so I just, again, want people to caution themselves. And Griggs, I want to give you the floor to talk about this before we go into Nygil Cullins. As someone who's in Georgia, who understands that people are frustrated with the current administration, people are frustrated about the attack on the people of Gaza and the Palestinian people. Folks are frustrated because the rent is too high, the food is too high, the gas is too high. People are frustrated because they're still killing us, the police still killing us, guns still in our communities. People are frustrated because of food deserts. People are frustrated because education is not what it should be. Folks are frustrated. And then when you have people like Amber Rose being used as a tool to misinform our folks in a state like Georgia that has the responsibility of choosing the next president because you all are a swing state, I want to hear from you what you feel about, what this sister and others are doing, and ultimately what we do to encourage. I'm in New York. I need you and your state to vote, because in New York, if we vote for, we're in the popular vote, but we are not an electoral college state. So we don't make the determination of who becomes president.
And so what we have to remember is every time we get into an election, there are voices that don't speak about politics that start speaking about politics. So you have to go to trusted messengers, and there's no more trusted messenger than the NAACP. Now, again, we're not going to talk about which candidate you should or should not vote for, but we will talk about policies. We will talk about the systemic disinvestment in education that will happen if Project 2025 is implemented. They're going to gut the Department of Education. They're going to gut the Department of Justice. I'm going to say it again. They're going to gut the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice was specifically created to fight against a homegrown white nationalist domestic terrorist called the Klan. And so when you start talking about these policies and you hear reality show stars trying to convince you, listen, I mean, I respect Amber, the things she's doing, but I don't get my politics and my policy decisions from a reality show star. It's really that clear. And to answer your question about whether or not the former president banned abortion, no, he didn't ban abortion, but he nominated, and they will confirm, the 3 conservative justices who made the majority to issue the Dobbs decision, which effectively ended abortion in this country. And so respectfully, stick to reality TV and stop trying to disinform individuals. We see what's going on the ground here in Georgia. And again, if there was a media celebrity in Georgia we would listen to, it's not Amber Rose. So we don't really have to listen to her in Georgia. But what we do have to listen to, and what we have to consider, is the fact that there is systemic injustice that's continuing to happen, that neither candidate are talking about that for any matter, or what they're going to do about the weaponization of law enforcement, what they're going to do about actually fixing the alleged crisis at the border, what they're going to do to fully fund the educational system. And so we have to make the candidates have that robust conversation about what they're going to do to change people's lives. And let's be clear, I lived through 2016 to 2020. I remember the COVID pandemic. I remember the twin pandemic of racism, 16-19. I don't want to go back to that. But what I also don't want to do is to sugarcoat what we are experiencing right now. Yes, gas is too high. Yes, a McDonald's Happy Meal is like $8 at this point. We have to address those things. So we need policy considerations from the candidates, from our trusted sources and voices in the political space to break down what they are going to do, what they have done. Again, I don't want somebody when we're going through a historic pandemic to tell us to inject bleach into our skin or use UV lights. That came out of his mouth. I don't want someone who led an armed insurrection against our country because he lost an election. Those are facts. I don't want somebody calling into Georgia to try to overturn the will of Black voters. Amber, that's what actually happened in Georgia. So again, respectfully, you can endorse whoever you want, but we run on facts, not feelings.
That's right. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I'm so happy to have you here to chime in on my thought of the day today. Attorney Gerald Griggs is a friend. I did not invite you here as the president of the Atlanta chapter of the NAACP and also the Georgia State Conference of the NAACP. You are president of that as well. I didn't invite you here as that. You just my friend, Gerald Griggs, and we just kicking it today about what's happening in our society. But you are the attorney for Nygil Cullins' family. 2 years ago, this young man, the way in which he was killed is something that, I mean, I don't watch videos of these incidents as much as possible. I do everything that I can to avoid it. The only way that I will watch a video and it sort of catches me is if I open my phone on my own and I just happen to be trying to see what's going on and then boom, there's the incident. Other than that, I can't, because the trauma sticks with us of watching our people literally be lynched in a different way, in right there in the palm of our hands. And that's a very different circumstance for us. You know, I think back when lynchings were prevalent, because by the way, someone said to me the other day, they don't lynch us anymore. No. There's still lynchings happening across this nation, especially in places like Mississippi and Louisiana. I know of the cases. But at that time, they would lynch us and have the community to watch it and leave the body hanging for days and days, so that it was a symbol to everybody about what could happen to you. We know
take souvenirs home.
And take souvenirs, including body parts, especially from the men. And also white folks would get dressed up, cleaned up in their best clothes, their Sunday go to church clothes, to watch a lynching. Now it is not the same as us, looking at a body hanging for days, but it's on our cell phones. It's right in the palm of our hands. And when I saw Nygil, I could see in his face, and my son spoke about this before you came on, the fear in his eyes. He was afraid. He was scared. He wasn't there to harm anyone. He needed help. And I want you to talk about 2 years ago. This happened 2 years ago. For folks who are listening, that video that you watch of Nygil Cullins being shot to death by the police in Fogo, the Brazilian steakhouse, it happened 2 years ago. And Gerald Griggs has been the attorney for the family since that time. So let's talk about it, break it down for us, let us know what has happened or what happened.
Yeah, so for those that saw the video a few days ago when it was finally released, because of the pressure the family has been putting on Atlanta Police Department for 2 years, let's take ourselves back. May the 18th of 2022, Nygil Cullins was in the middle of a mental health distress. He was at his home with his mother and his father, and he was going through his manic stage. And for 2 hours, his mother, Dr. Maya Cullins, was calling law enforcement to get a crisis intervener so she could get Nygil to a bed that she had already secured at one of our facilities here so he can get treatment. Of course, the police department did not respond in any term of a efficient amount of time. It took 2 hours. And so Nygil was able to successfully leave his home, get on MARTA, take MARTA down to the Lindbergh train station and then walk up Piedmont to go to Fogo de Chao. And unlike the information the police have been releasing and the city of Atlanta has been releasing, Nygil actually formerly worked at Fogo de Chao and knew many of the individuals that were there. So the 911 call saying that they didn't know this guy had spiky hair and gold teeth, all that's erroneous. But anyway, he goes into the Fogo de Chao. He gets some food. He sits at the bar. He interacts with people at the bar. He's talking to the maitre d'. He does go behind the bar and get a bottle of Hennessy and come back and drink that. And he's in the process of eating and drinking and not threatening anybody. You can clearly see that in the video because no one is threatened. No one's disturbed. People are eating and drinking. Everything's going well. He was never asked to pay for the meal. He was going to probably pay for the meal, but law enforcement arrived. They arrived, and that's where the video really begins. Now, again, there are 2 hours of video that has been released. Most of the platforms, with the exception of YouTube, have not released all the video, which is why the family was upset. But so you see the police come in and they interact with Nygil. As soon as they get to Nygil, he turns around, puts his hands up, and starts to go to the ground. As he's going to the ground, the police push him to the ground, and he flips over with his hands up. Now, their police are saying, well, we told him, put his hands behind his back. He has his hands up. He does have a gun in his waistband. And again, in Georgia, as of March of 2022, there was the open carry and concealed carry, constitutional carry. So because of our Governor Brian Kemp and the infinite wisdom of the General Assembly, you can carry a gun anywhere in Georgia, concealed or not, without a license, without anything. You just have a gun because it's Georgia. So they see the gun in the waistband. He's going to the ground. He's on the ground. Put your hands up. He's got his hands up. Put your hands behind your back. Before he gets an opportunity to put his hands behind his back, he's tased. Now, he's in a manic episode.
Already.
So it agitates him. He tries to remove the pain by running away from the police. Now, here's where the interpretation of videos diverge. Again, you can't see where the gun is outside of when you saw it in the waistband. Police are saying he took the gun out as he was running. I don't see that, and I've seen the video 4 times. I see his hands. You see his hands. You see a napkin in one of the hands. Anyway, he runs around the back of the restaurant, comes back towards the opening foyer, and is tackled by the security guard. Security guard tackles him. Now, my question is, why is the security guard tackling him if law enforcement has been called to address this situation? The security guard tackles him. The gun goes off. You don't see the gun being produced. I don't care how much they slow it down and try to circle things. It goes off. We don't know who shot whom, but we know a gun goes off. He's on the ground. Gun goes off. Security guard rolls off. Police fire at him 5 times. Now, here's where the anger of the family and myself and others who had seen the video before. We'd seen the video 3 times. The first time we saw the video was 6 months after the incident. The NAACP was invited in to see the video. They stopped it right after the 5 seconds of the first shooting. So we didn't know anything about a second shooting. So then a year goes by. We meet with the mayor. The mayor agrees to release the video to the family. We go in to see the video, and we realize, lo and behold, the first video was edited. So they play the second video where you see him run. He gets tackled. Fires 5 times, pauses, walks around a little bit, and then fires 10 more times. And my thing is, why are you firing into a man who's clearly down? He's clearly incapacitated, and you unload 15 shots into him. But that doesn't stop there. We asked them to release the full unedited video a year ago. They do not release the video for whatever reason. Case is still open. So the family files a lawsuit last month. And the police finally released the video, the edited portion of the video, with the editorialization and the attempts to justify, even though this case has not been justified. The case is still open. It's in the district attorney's office. The police, Atlanta police, cannot justify a police-involved shooting. Either the GBI or the DA has to do that. So the family is completely frustrated with the response of law enforcement. One, they didn't show up in time to address the mental health issue that Nygil was having 2 hours before. Then you show up at the restaurant, get erroneous information. You try to tase a man who's trying to give up with his hands up. You chase him. The security guards tackles him, and then you unload 15 shots in him, and then you try to justify it. And so that's where we are. It's been 2 years of a fight for transparency and justice. they have now told our friend, Pastor Jamal Bryant, that they will finally release the unedited version. They told him that on Friday. It's 48 hours later. I still don't see it. So that's where we are. In Georgia, there's a systemic police brutality issue. In Atlanta, there's a systemic police brutality issue. And the attempt to deflect and divert continues from Rayshard Brooks and Jimmy Atchison all the way now to Nygil Cullins and also Deacon Johnny Holloman. There are so many names in Georgia, in Atlanta, that need to be lifted up. And we're appreciative of you and Until Freedom, and so many others are standing with this family. But Georgia has a police brutality problem. Atlanta has a police brutality problem. And Nygil Cullins is the face of that.
Well, thank you for that very clear synopsis of what has taken place here, because I've had people say, well, he shot the security guard. They don't know that. They're saying it because that's either what the news has said or implied, strongly implied. But have they tested the ballistics from his gun and the wound of the police officer the security guard, to 100% either eliminate and or confirm that it came from Nygil's gun?
No, they haven't. And one of the interesting things, now that I've seen the full 2 hours, again, I was initially showed clips, then another clip, but now I've had a chance to see it all. No, they haven't released the full GBI report. They haven't released the autopsy report. They haven't released the ME's report. They haven't released the ballistics report. And interesting enough, I am a criminal defense attorney, so I deal with this all day long. When they declared Nygil dead, they didn't bag his hands. The reason why you would bag somebody's hands is to do GSR, gun residue on the hands, to be able to definitively say, one, they handled the gun, and two, they fired the gun. Because when you fire the gun, there are particles that eject from the firing of the bullets called stippling that go backwards and they go forward, and you can tell who was in contact with the gun and if they used it. So, it's easy ways they can prove all this, but all they're doing is putting a narrative out there. And we would argue the narrative is incorrect. And that's why we are correcting the narrative. We want the truth to come out. We want transparency. And transparency starts with, if you're going to release the video, release everything. So now that everyone can see what actually happened, what the witnesses said, what 911 said, what the medical examiners have said, what the GBI testers have said, and then, of course, the police involved shooting, so we can determine what the security guard and the police officer all said.
It's interesting because even in the Breonna Taylor matter, Kenny Walker was accused of shooting the officer, one of the officers, in the knee, in the leg, I think the knee. And they never tested, or whether they tested it or not, we don't know, because they never 100% confirmed that Kenny's bullet hit the officer's knee. With everybody shooting all around, who the hell knows how the officer was shot, right? We don't know, but they tried to use it and to vilify Kenny. However, for some reason, there was never 100% confirmation, and then ultimately the case against Kenny was dropped. And so I think this is a pattern that we see, that when there is a shooting, an officer involved shooting, there is this, they say one thing, but they never actually give you the proof to prove what they are using as their narrative to give them a reason for the use of force. And so that's interesting. The other thing I see as a pattern is that they are slowing down videos. There was a time when they would just put out a clip and cut some part from it. Now they slow down the videos, and they are very clear. I was having a conversation with Attorney Ben Crump about this. They know how to manipulate the eyes, what the eyes can see, based upon the way they edit the footage and slow it down and make it where it's very difficult for you and I to understand the rapid speed of things as it happens. And so these people are using tactics. This is not like it's just a mishap, or they have very specific tactics for how they are going forward with brutalizing and then misinforming, disinforming, as you said, the people. So I know you are seeing that in your cases.
Absolutely. And what the public needs to understand is in a case, the police or the state have the burden to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So slowing a video down, life does not happen in slow motion. Life happens in real time. And the Supreme Court has said that, officers have split-second decisions to make. They didn't say slow motion decisions to make. And it has to be the reasonable officer. And so in this particular case, it's not reasonable for an officer to shoot somebody 15 times, whether they have a gun or not, if they're not a threat when they're down. And then an officer does not have the right to encounter somebody if they don't have reasonable, articulable suspicion that that person has committed a crime. So when you initially tased Nygil Cullins, what crime was he reasonably, that you could articulate, suspected of doing? He was in a restaurant, lawfully having a gun, eating a meal, and he was not being disruptive. Even the 2 hours of footage show he was not disruptive. So it wasn't disorderly conduct. He wasn't obstructing, because in Georgia, you have a right to resist an unlawful arrest. But once you got past the reasonable suspicion, which is to detain, that's just to detain, they said they were going to arrest him. So what's the probable cause that he committed a crime? What is the more probable than not that he committed a crime that I can charge him with? I'm still asking that question. So from the point of the encounter, which started it all, that's where we start our analysis. And that analysis is faulty. So to get to the point where a citizen now, the security officer, who's now intervening in a police investigation, tackles somebody, it sets all that in motion. So while we're having these armchair quarterbacks trying to do analysis based on a one-sided narrative, that's not what happens in court. And the burden is not on the family to justify anything. The burden is on the police.
That's two last things, and I'm going to let you go. One, Fani Willis, where does she fall in this entire scope of mess? And I say that because, Fani has become beloved by Black people. Black women specifically have been supporting her, because we know that the unfair treatment that she has suffered and continues to suffer, is something that we have to stand up and speak out about, right? We know that too many women are sexualized, and whoever we may be with or whatever's going on in our personal lives is used against us in ways that it does not always happen to men, number one, but it's also anytime we are strong, powerful women who are willing, who have self-determination, and are willing to go up against some of the most powerful, go up against the system, then you have these issues about who we slept with, how we wear our hair, how we speak, we're too loud, we're too angry, so this is a stigma that people recognize and immediately jumped on to support her. However, I had people contacting me during the time where I, like others, was posting Fani and saying we need to support the sister, saying, we understand this moment, but her relationship to prosecuting police officers who harm Black and brown people, and particularly Black people in Atlanta, has not been great. And so I wonder if you can speak to that really quickly, and then we can finish with you talking about, you said the family, you talked about the family. I met mom, beautiful woman, young woman, said the last 2 years she's been going through hell. When I saw her, I just wasn't expecting. I was expecting to see someone a little bit older. I guess that's my own, I don't know, ignorance, that I would dare to think that after all these years with all of these different types of mothers that I work with, that I had this idea of what she would look like. And when she walked up, this is a beautiful, amazingly beautiful woman who does not look like what I know she's been going through. And she was trying to get help for her son, which really hurts me, deeply. I want to know how Fogo, as you said, Fogo de Chao, I've been calling it Fogo, how have they been responding to this family? So that's the two things, Fani, and then Fogo de Chao is the corporate side of this. What has been their response?
So Fani has had her special investigative unit meet with the family on 2 occasions. They now have the case and they are reviewing the case. And as you spoke, Fani is very intentional in how she handles police-involved cases. You know, she hasn't been as quick as the previous district attorney to indict police officers and charge them and try them. But she's working through it. And, you know, I've known Fonnie Willis since I was 19, and she worked in the city solicitor's office. She's a conscientious attorney. Now, that does not mean I don't disagree with her. She'd be the first one to say, Gerald's like that friend who you love to hate. And, you know, I don't want to talk to him when he gets in his feelings about anything. So we fight. We fought in Georgia's longest trial, APS. I disagree with her. I still disagree with her, but she understands that when it comes to the situations that are happening with the former president of the United States, there's only one person in Georgia that can call Fonnie out. That's me. Anybody else, we're going to have a problem because she does, when she has her mind set, do the right thing. But sometimes she can be dissuaded to do other things. So it's a love-hate relationship, but I do respect her.
It's the politics. And as a prosecutor, you know, prosecutors, unfortunately, are very close to police. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we deal with. Well, you want to be nice about it today. The way you said it sounds really nice and buttoned up. I would say that for the last 2 years, either she knew that he was shot and killed in such an egregious manner, or she didn't know. And if she did not know that this happened because she didn't see or have or whatever the full video, then that raises the question of the police department and how honest and forthcoming they have been with her office. And so I don't know which one is, you know, and I'm sure you understand, and we don't have to get into it today, but I still have questions about that, because what happened to Nygil Cullins, it feels to me like 2 years ago, something should have been done, and certainly indictments should have been handed down for these police officers. But let's talk about the mom and Fogo de Chao, and then
Yes.
you can go for the day. And thank you so
Yeah.
much for being with me.
So Maya Cullins is a force of nature, and like you said, and I was in the same position when I first met her. You know, I was expecting a older woman who would have experienced this, but she had Nygil very young. She's a very accomplished woman. She has her PhD. She owns multiple mental health treatment facilities throughout the state. She does a lot of civic engagement and a lot of community engagement, both in Macon, Waycross, Atlanta. She's a powerhouse media producer herself with TV movies that are on Tubi and one that's coming to Netflix. She's a force. And when I first met her, she said, I loved my baby. They took my baby and they killed the wrong one, but they got the right mama. She told that to the mayor directly. And so she's not going to give up. She's as tenacious as me and Tamika put together. And that's saying a lot. And she's angry right now about what happened to her son when she tried to get help. And she's not going to stop. And so the response of the restaurant hasn't been any response. They haven't responded to the lawsuit yet. Hopefully they will respond to the lawsuit and we'll handle that in court.
You
But
all
you know,
in the restaurant.
yeah, I mean, but you know, there have been really no response. We see what the response is from the police department. You know, they waited 2 years, released this tape. Now they're trying to justify the tape, even though they haven't justified the shooting through their internal, you know, Department of Internal Affairs or anything like that. And the DA's office hadn't justified it. So we're still at the same place we were 2 years ago, except the world has seen the tape. And I know people want to make quick assumptions about what is or is not in the tape, but I would argue watch all 2.5 hours. Don't watch it in slow motion. Watch it as it happens. Watch the reaction of the people in the restaurant as it's happening. If Nygil was such a threat, how come the people didn't get scared until law enforcement started firing tasers and law enforcement started firing weapons? Right there in the vestibule of a busy restaurant. Those bullets could have gone anywhere.
Anywhere.
15 shots. And it could have been a whole lot of other people injured because they didn't know how to deal appropriately with the mental health crisis.
Well, thank you, Attorney Gerald Griggs, our fighting brother, fighting attorney, long-time attorney. How long you been an attorney, Griggs?
I've been an attorney 20 years. So I've been doing this a long time.
Fighting in the state of Georgia. We thank you and we honor you, because it's not easy to take case after case after case. As you know, in the position we sit in, we are often the only phone call that people know to make and the only ones who respond. And sometimes we have no answer for how to navigate all the pieces of the difficulties of these situations. And nothing in us has any certainty that the end result will be favorable for our people. But we fight anyway. And we see you out there, Griggs. You deal with a lot. You deal with the haters. You deal with the people who, and I think now folks have started to just say, we can't beat Griggs. We just got to join them and, you know, figure out how to support you. And so I certainly always have and will continue to be your sister and to support you. And I want to help in any way that I can until freedom wants to help. With Nygil, you know, for us, we run towards difficult cases. I don't know why. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that as if it is a badge of honor, okay? Because I wish I could get cases that is cut and dry. The thing happened, bam, you see it, that's it. I'm right. Police, you know, or whomever is involved, they lose, and the system just resets itself and does what's right, and there's accountability. That's not the case for us. We seem to take on the cases that have layers. It's complex. People, you know, Breonna Taylor's ex-boyfriend or whatever he was to her was a drug dealer, and therefore she was involved with it. She was somehow a kingpin herself. That's one case that Kenny, her current boyfriend at the time that she was killed, shot the cop. George Floyd may or may not have taken some drugs. You know, it's always layered. You know, Ahmaud Arbery walked into the house, a house that he was trespassing on the property. These are the narratives out there. And we take on those types of responsibilities. That causes a lot of stress. And I know you are definitely, you face that, but yet you still stand up. You still have time to make brand new babies. This baby is so beautiful. How old is your newest child?
He's 4 weeks last week, so he's going into his 5th week now. So, you know, and like you said, Tamika, we don't take the easy cases. You know, Ahmaud, they said he was trespassing, even though there was no trespassing sign down there in Centilla Shores. You know, Nygil, they saying he shot the security guard when the evidence doesn't show that he shot the security guard. It shows that there was a discharge of a weapon when there was a struggle. But we also focus on what the law says. And so, you know, the law said Ahmaud was not a trespasser, and there are 3 individuals sitting in a prison cell in Georgia that are going to stay there the rest of their natural lives. And so, folks, you got to understand, this is not easy, but we were built for this moment. We were built for this time. We're going to make sure we stand up for our people. It's like Tamika did. You know, she said, until there's freedom for her people, she's going to be doing this work. So, yeah, there's a lot of people out here that don't like me. I really don't care. What I care about is justice. And we are going to pursue justice. We're going to be just as bold and just as opinionated as our ancestors. And we're going to get that justice one way or the other.
One way or the other. Thank you so much, Attorney Gerald Griggs.
Appreciate you.
Thank you again, Attorney Gerald Griggs, for being with us today. I mean, I think you are, you know, listening and you've taken the time to hear all of what he stated in this interview. You hear someone who's not confused. He is not off on the facts. He knows he's been for 2 years dealing with Nygil Cullins' family. And, you know, he's at ease, able to explain to you why this case is so egregious and why what happened to Nygil Cullins is illegal. It should be considered to be illegal by the courts in the state of Georgia. And we support 100% the work that Gerald Griggs is doing there, along with Nygil Cullins' family. Next week, we're going to be back with our regularly scheduled programming. This week, as Mysonne has had to go off and work with the young people, which again, my heart is just, I'm so proud of what he is doing and what a vision that he had through our Boycott Black Murder campaign. And he has executed that vision. And I am so excited to leave from sitting here in front of this computer today, talking to you all, to go out and be a part of what I feel is history in the making with these young people, that their minds and hearts have been shifted, that they can see a different way than the way that sometimes our culture tries to tell them, that being the most thugged out, being the, you know, most violent and dangerous, that their trauma and their issues that they faced in life, that they should take the hard way, which is the violent way, the dangerous way, the way that can lead them to self-destruction, that's actually celebrated, that there are people who will pay you for the music that exploits their trauma, that there are systems that somehow will uplift you and make you seem like you are a leader in our community when you do wrong, and when you are, in my judgment, when you are a part of what is bringing us down versus what is actually lifting us up. There's too many different areas within our community that celebrates that. And what we want to do is turn it around and say that no, these groups, these people, this area, this segment of our community that celebrates people who are dealing with trauma, but are still committed to their own upliftment and the upliftment of our community. That's what we want to focus on. That's where we want to invest. That's what we want to show and lift and highlight as a beacon of light in our community. And so today, I'm excited, and I know that you all will get an opportunity to hear the music, to meet the students, their parents, the teacher, the music teacher that was involved, and of course, Principal Cook. All of that's coming up. Thank you for joining TMI. We are working hard to bring you the type of content that you all can appreciate. And please go to TMI_show to leave us comments about what you like and don't like about the show, things that you think we can do to improve, and guests that you want to hear from, topics that you would like to hear, because you all are a part of this with us. We're learning together. We are growing together, and we are so grateful to have you on the journey with us for TMI. Thank you. Peace.
That's how we own it. That's how we own it. Oh, that's how we own it.
Check out the video version of TMI
Every single Wednesday on iWoman.tv.
That's how we own it.